All right, here we go. Well, we're excited to have everyone here for our Unlock Your Esri Internship event that Himanshi and I are putting on. My name is Dr. Luke Gorham. I'm the Senior Associate Director for the Office of Career and Professional Development. And I'll let my colleague introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Himanshi Alahakoon. I am currently a grad student at the School of Business. I'm doing my master's in business analytics, and I'm also a graduate peer career educator here at the Office of Career and Professional Development, and I was a former Esri intern. So yeah, very nice to meet you all.
We will, Hamashi has the good stuff, right? So I'm just going to talk about the bland resume stuff, but I'm just going to cover some quick tips for everyone, and then we'll jump right into Hamashi's presentation, and then what's probably most important to you all, questions and answers. All right, so the basics of a resume, right? So if your life is a book, your resume is the back cover, right? It's the most important pieces of information about you, about your story that will want a hiring manager to bring you in for an interview. So what you want to do when you're creating your resume is to make sure that you have that resume focused on the positions that you're applying for, internships, part-time jobs, full-time jobs. Make sure the resume and also your cover letter is focused on the position you're applying to. You want to have clean formatting, both in content and also in format, and then accurate and supportable information. Never embellish, don't lie, is what I like to say. And then you want to make sure that it's going to be easy to read in that format and also content. So we suggest no online MS Word templates or websites that you put your information into and it kicks out a resume for you. The reason is we can really start to see some bad formatting with some of these resumes. If you look at a couple of the resumes to the right side there, you can see in that first one in the top left, it has a section called additional information, right? And as we already know, we want to make sure that our resume is created for a particular job. So that type of section is not going to be helpful for us. The next one over to that one, there's a lot of white space in there, and that's taking up a lot of room for you to put really important information on the resume. Okay, so you want to make sure that we have tighter spacing for your resume. And then lastly, the employers can identify those templates pretty easily. They can be less likely to stand out visually with those resumes, although the content that you're going to put into those resumes will be very important. So the best thing that you can do is you can create a resume from scratch in MS Word. You can also create a resume in Google Docs, but the formatting in Google Docs is much more limited than it is using MS Word. So we suggest MS Word, but we would be happy to update a Google resume, a Google Doc resume that you can send that to us, and we can update it to make sure that everything looks good, and we can fix the formatting issues that may come from using that. So creating that resume from scratch or generating it using our resume template. And so before we go today, I'll drop that resume template into the chat, or if one of my colleagues would drop the resume template into the chat, that'd be great. So you can start to see what that resume could look like. There's lots of good information on that template as well. So this is typically what a resume is going to look like. You see that there's quite a bit of information. Our margins are about a ½ inch all the way around, and it fills the page. Okay, so that's going to be important for us to do. You're going to have your name and contact information at the very top of the resume. You're going to have your degree in education next. And that could include study abroad or relevant coursework. And then you're going to customize your sections from there. Okay, so you may want to highlight some work experience on your resume, or some research or lab experience. Maybe you have some experience related to Esri that you would want to put on here, or Esri products that you would want to put on here. You can make those sections any way that you'd like, as long as it makes sense in the way that you line them out on the page. So there are lots of ways to move around the information that you have, as long as it makes sense. Feel free to create sections that make sense, and you don't just have to use the sections on our resume template. So for your name and contact information, you want to make sure that your name is the biggest at the top, an 18 to 26 point font, depending on the font that you're using. I'm going to talk about two different ways that you can put your address on here. I like to talk about the first one just because students ask about it. So sometimes you may be looking for an internship back home over the summer. You may be looking for a job back home. A way that you can identify quickly for the hiring managers that you will be in that location is to put your local address, which would be here in Redlands. And then back home for me is the Kansas City, Missouri area. So I put that there in my contact information at the top. The other way you can identify that is just to say you're coming back to the Kansas City area, or I'm coming back to Kansas City in the cover letter. I could also do that as well. But this is a way that you might use a local versus a permanent address. It does take up a lot of space, so that's just something for you to consider as well. But this is a way you could list out that contact information. And then, of course, the easy one, the one that we typically suggest, name big at the top, city and state. You only need to put your city and state, okay? So we're not asking folks anymore to put their local address, the place that they live. That information is not needed on the resume. So a city and state, or an area, a metropolitan area, Los Angeles area, whatever that might be, you can do that as well. Inland Empire, if you wanted to. That's a little broad, but you could do that one as well. And then, of course, a professional email address. I always like to say your first name dot last name at whichever email that you'd like to use. You can use your University of Redlands email if you'd like to. The important thing is that you're using an email that you will check consistently, because as you start to applying for jobs, you're going to want to check the emails that you're using to hear back about interviews. So the last thing I want to talk about is just written name pronunciation. So this is just a consideration if others struggle pronouncing your name, is just to put your name in parentheses below phonetically, or as close to phonetic as you can get it, right? And so mine is not phonetic, but mine you can sound it out. And the reason that I share this is because unfortunately there's still bias in the hiring process, and we want to give the recruiter a chance to reach out to you, and we want to make sure that they're confident in how they can pronounce your name, or better pronounce your name. So this is just something I would suggest for you to consider as well. The education section, you can see this. This is also how it's lined out in the template. You want to make sure that you spell out your formal degree title. How is it going to appear on your how is it going to appear on your diploma, or how does it appear on your department's website? That's how you want to list out your degree there. If you have minors, you can put that on there as well. And then your GPA is optional. If an employer wants a GPA, they're going to ask for that. If you want to just list it on there just to list it, we would suggest a 3.5, a 3.5 or above. But again, some employers don't want to see your GPA, so it is dependent upon the position that you're applying to a lot of the time, whether we would suggest a GPA or not. Honors and awards can live in this section. Relevant coursework can live in this section. And then also study abroad can live in this section as well. Study abroad is also one, if you wanted to talk about a study abroad experience in more depth, you could put it in an experiences section or have its own section below with bullet points. But it could live here if you just wanted to show that you were part of a study abroad program. It could go in the education section as well. So this is typically how we're going to suggest that you format your experiences, with 4 main pieces of information. That's going to be your position title. Okay, so position title at a job, position title of a student organization, volunteer, etc. Then the place of employment, or the student organization name or the organization's name, location in a city, state format, and then dates in a month, year format. So sometimes students will want to use fall and spring as a date indicator. We don't suggest that, because when an employer is looking at how many years or months that you've worked, that doesn't tell them exactly. So you want to make sure that you're listing it in a month, year format like this one. Okay, and then you'll get into your bullet points below there. Also, it's important to list your experiences in reverse chronological order by start date. Okay, so this is what that's going to look like. So whatever you've done most recently sits at the top, and then you work back from there. Let's say that the second one there, I was still doing that second one, Aegis Newmark's Care Center PT experience. If I'm still doing that, and I would change this end here to the December 2021 to present, I would still list it second because I started it before the most recent experience there. So just know that it's reverse chronological order by start date. I'm not going to get to spend as much time on bullet points as I like to typically, but these are the most important pieces of your resume. I love a format. I love playing with format, but this content is really going to be important for you because the bullet points that you create are going to help tell your story and help show what skills that you have. So a hiring manager and HR can decide whether you meet the qualifications for the role. So this is going to be important. These are important. So this is a formula that I like to use. It's one formula, but the end changes just a little bit. So you want to make sure it's a strong action verb to start off each bullet point, a description of the activity or the skill, and then the reason, purpose, or end result or accomplishment at the end. And so if you put those three pieces together, that's going to give you a really strong bullet point. I do at the link below, which I will share this PowerPoint out to you all. The link below will have some good examples for you as well. If a student asks how many bullet points, it does depend, but typically 3 to 5 bullet points are a decent number for you. And if you're thinking, I don't know where to start in creating my bullet points, just think about the top 3 to 5 things that you are doing in that experience on a day-to-day basis. And those top 3 to 5 things can be the basis for your bullet points. Okay, so here's my example, facilitated resume workshop for 20 college students discussing best practices for resume format and bullet point creation. And then this is what it looks like in the format. Okay, and I'm going to show you some examples here. I think I skipped those. Okay, no examples. That is my example. That link has some great examples as well, but always please come see us if you need help building your bullet points. We're excited to help you all. Himanshi included, and a lot of folks on this webinar actually can help you create some really great bullet points. So just as you're thinking about past or present tense, there are a couple ways that you can list tense. So the more traditional way is use past tense for past events, present tense for present events. So communicated for past jobs, communicate for current jobs. More recently, though, it's been more accepted to use past tense consistently throughout all of your positions. That way you don't have to go back and forth. So helped for past, current for help for current, coordinated. Okay. And then just what not to include. Personal information does not need to go on your resume. Address, we've already discussed. Date of birth, driver's license, social security number. Visa type or status is not, you don't need to list that on your resume. We suggest that you don't because that can increase bias in the person looking at your resume. So we suggest not talking about that on your resume. Or work authorization details, talking in depth about OPT or CPT. We don't suggest you do that. Again, because you are eligible for OPT, CPT, you're eligible to work, right? So we don't want to get into this with the employers until I'm open to other folks on this one, but until negotiations or maybe even after the offer letter. No abbreviations. So we have a lot of abbreviations here at the University of Redlands. And it's hard to know what all the student organizations or all the organizations are. OCPD, SBS, states, streets. Let's keep abbreviations out. It's a more formal document there. Personal interests or hobbies, we don't want those on your resume. High school experience, it's okay early in your college career, in your bachelor's degree college career to list that, but typically you're going to replace that with college experiences. Paragraphs or sentences, we don't want to do that. As we know, we talked about bullet points. Additional personal information or pictures, not for resumes here. References do not need to go on your resume. That can be a separate sheet, or typically you'll just put those into the job application that you're applying for. And then emojis. But I recently saw a study that 70% of hiring managers dislike emojis being used in the resumes. And I was surprised. I mean, I don't think folks do it a lot. I don't see it a lot, but maybe it's a little bit more prominent than what we know. I don't know. Yeah, he looks sharp, Jim. He sure does. Okay. So what I'd like to do is introduce my colleague, Himanshi Alahakoon, and she's going to talk about her experience at Esri, and she's got a presentation for you. And then we're going to leave questions till the end. So if you have resume questions, we can come back to it at the end, but I want to make sure that she gets to chat and you all get to ask all the questions that you want related to the Esri internship.
Alrighty, let me share my screen. Can everyone see my screen? All right, and then everyone can hear me fine, correct? All right, sounds good. So as I introduced myself earlier, my name is Himanshi. So I was a former Esri intern this past summer. I worked at the global business department, global marketing department as a global marketing analyst, and I had the greatest time. And so that's why I wanted to come in here and share a couple of tips and tricks that I did to secure my internship position, because right now is the best time to do it because the applications are open. So that's why hopefully through this meeting that we have here today, whether you are an undergrad or a grad student, you'll take away some tips and tricks that I use that will help you in your application process as well. All righty. So, oh, there we go. Okay, so first and foremost, who is Esri and why Esri, right? That's one of the main things I think students forget when they apply for positions. You have to understand the company that you're applying for and the position, because everything can get lost in translation, and you have to understand if you'll be a good fit for that company and if the company will be a good fit for you, depending on which route you want to take, right? So in terms of Esri, obviously, for those of you know and for those of you don't know, Esri is a leading company in geospatial technology, and an internship here offers you a chance to work on real world problems, get hands-on experiences, as well as receive guidance from industry experts. So an internship like this, having this on your resume, is going to be a game changer once you get into the real world and you start applying for full-time jobs. So the projects that you work on here it's going to be very impactful, and the connections that you make here through your internships, it's going to open various types of doors for you in your future careers. So if I figure out, there we go. So to start applying, obviously, for Esri's internship program, it requires a very strong resume. That's why I'm kind of glad that Luke did the resume breakdown, because that's going to help you a lot in terms of your application. Just make sure that you customize your resume to the position that you are applying for. Focus on any relevant projects that you did, and any skills that you have from your previous projects that are transferable to the position that you are applying for, and highlight those in your resume under your bullet points or under your skills section, because that helps a lot. And also, if you worked with any GIS products or have any types of geospatial analysis background, add that onto your resume as well, because that's going to make you stand out as a candidate. So just make sure that you do everything that Luke mentioned in his presentation portion of things to highlight your resume. And then another thing that I did during my application process was I actually went on LinkedIn and I typed out the position that I was applying for, and I found previous interns that held this same position as what I was applying for. And I looked through their experience profile on their LinkedIn profile, and I tried to find correlating skills that they had that I also currently possess that I could add on to my resume, because they already had the job, so they did something, right? So I wanted to make sure that my resume and my experiences somehow reflected things. Obviously, make sure that you take out things that only, like, that skill sets that you actually have don't lie on your resume, but just try to do those things that make you stand out. So when you go on LinkedIn, you might even find previous interns that have their resumes uploaded on LinkedIn. So you can download it, try to find the formats that they had, any types of keywords that they used to help them get that internship. So that's one of the main things that I would say that people should definitely focus on. And also, so the Esri internship, it doesn't require a cover letter, but I do recommend submitting a well-crafted cover letter because that's going to be your one chance. Before you get that interview, even for you to get an interview, that will be your one chance to prove to the company, this is why I'm a better fit. Because so last summer, the internship coordinators said that over 15,000 applicants applied and only 109 of us got the actual internships. So that's a big pool. So you want to make sure you stand out. You do everything that you can to stand out within that big pool of people. So in that cover letter, make sure that you mention why you're the best fit for the position. Talk about why Esri's culture is something that you resonate with and how you can benefit from their culture and how the company can benefit from your skill sets too. So making sure you customize your 2 documents that you submit to the position, it's going to be one of the main things that I recommend for your application process. So then moving on to how you can stand out. So obviously standing out not only involves just like having the technical knowledge, but also demonstrating soft skills, because obviously you have to highlight any experiences that you have with, if it's GIS tools or ArcGIS or programming languages or any other skills that you might directly need for the position that you're applying for. You should also highlight your soft skills like team working skills, your critical thinking skills, or whether it's just like problem solving skills that companies like Esri are looking for that they can't find in a lot of people. Make sure you highlight those skills in your resume or in your cover letter, so that way you can stand out as well. And another way that I recommend to other students is, so when I was applying for the internships, I actually looked up the internship coordinators at Esri. I found their profiles, I connected with them, and once I got my initial request to come back for an interview, I reached out to them, I introduced myself, and I was just like, hey, do you have any resources that you could provide me with that would help me during my interview process? Because that way you put yourself out there, and that itself is going to make the recruiters remember you. So when you interview with your hiring manager, and once the hiring manager goes back to the recruiters and they're trying to figure out who's the best candidate, the recruiters will have something good to say about you because you already did the proactive outreach to them and you found out more resources from them compared to other candidates that just apply and get the interview and go through the process. So I definitely do recommend that because something that one of my mentors said that stuck with me during undergrad, and I carry this throughout my grad school and in the future too, is what matters is who knows you and who you know. So that comes with networking. So use your networking skills as much as possible during this process, not just for Esri, for any job that you're applying for, and make sure that you have a well-polished LinkedIn profile so you can reach out to whether it's alumni or current recruiters and put yourself out there in that sense. So, and also another tip, so Esri is actually going to be there tomorrow during our career fair. So you can obviously pop in tomorrow, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Orton Center and introduce yourself and also get yourself out there like that too. So interview preparation, the interview process at Esri, at least from my experience, it was just one interview for the internship programs, and most likely it's going to be with your your hiring manager. So this is your first ever human-to-human interaction that you'll have with Esri, right? Before you get the job, obviously. So this is your time to kind of put yourself, like, make yourself known to the interviewer in a more personal level. So before you obviously get into the interview, like before your interview day, look up whoever it is that the hiring manager is, look up their profile on LinkedIn, find similarities that you might have that you can spark small conversation. Because small talk is always helpful, because interviews are daunting, because you're trying to sell yourself to a potential future employer. So you want to make sure you put your best foot forward. So to do that, find some similarities that you might have, whether it's a previous educational background that you have, or whether it's just you have a mutual connection on LinkedIn that you can talk about. What I did was my hiring manager happened to have the same career background as I did. I come from a tech sales background, and my hiring manager also came from tech sales and then went into marketing. So that was my talking point for the beginning of the conversation. So that helped me a lot. That helped me ease my nerves, as well as him to get to know me a little bit better as well. And also, just make sure during your interview you're very candid. Don't try to be too professional, because be human. That's the best advice that I can give anyone. Because when you try to be too professional, sometimes you mess up your words and stuff like that, and that's not a good look. So even if you do stutter a little bit, that's fine. Laugh it off. Make sure that they understand that you're here for the reason to get the internship, and obviously make sure that your technical knowledge is thorough. Research about the position that you're applying for. Look through the skill sets that they're looking for, and make sure you can speak to your experiences. But also, if they ask you a question and you don't know the technical answer to that, be honest. Let the recruiter know, hey, I actually don't know the answer to that, and now I'm curious to learn a little bit more about it. So I'm going to look forward to learning about X, Y, and Z. Because what Esri is obviously looking for is, yes, they are looking to see if you have the skill set that they want, but also Esri is a company that looks for people that are willing to learn, because it's an ever-growing company. So make sure you show that to your recruiter, that you are always open to new opportunity and that you want to learn new things that you are not even aware of. And also, you are willing to enhance the current skill set that you currently have, because that's the whole point of the internship there with Esri. So make sure that you kind of communicate that with your hiring manager, and obviously show enthusiasm to join Esri's mission, because they're doing a great job, and I actually loved my internship. So make sure you do that. So those are like the main tips and tricks that I did. And another point that I do want to make before I jump into questions is, this is highly relatable to international students. Obviously, as you know, if you are going to do the internship during your school year, it's going to be through CPT, and Kristen will obviously explain a little bit better once you talk to her. But make sure you speak to your faculty heads a little bit in advance, because once you do apply for this job and you get your internship, you will need a letter of recommendation from your department head explaining why that internship directly correlates with your coursework, with your major. So make sure you give them a heads up too, and that you understand that if the position actually connects with your current course of study, because that's going to be important, and everything has to happen in a timely manner. So you want to make sure you control the controllables to get the best outcome of things. So yeah. So any questions?
I have a question, Himanshi.
Yes, Jay.
Now I don't know if you mentioned this, but did you have, and if you did, I'm sorry. Did you have how many interviews did you have?
It was just one interview.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Do you know if that was standard, or do other people have multiple interviews?
So
Because
for intern,
you're a great candidate, and but so I mean, there could be possibilities somebody has multiple interviews.
so from my cohort, all of my friends from the internship program, it seemed like for the internships, it's only one interview. You're gonna have that with your hiring manager. And the team, like your direct team, might join the interview. For me, it was just me and my director. So, and like my interview was almost, it felt like a conversation almost. It didn't feel like an interview, which was great because that's how I know something's going good. And he actually offered the position to me right then, like towards the end of the interview. And it wasn't like that for some people, but that's how it went for me. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Himanshi.
Yes.
Was there a single position that you applied for, or did you, when I was looking through the lists of different positions, they're not all directly related to GIS. It might be, like you mentioned, it's marketing within a GIS leadership or geospatial company. So I'm curious if you applied for more than one and how you kind of went through the process of knowing what to apply for.
Yeah, so for me, I only applied for the position that I actually got, the global marketing analyst intern position, because since my masters are in business analytics, I wanted to make sure that it related to my coursework. I didn't want to do something in GIS and then have my department head be like, oh, it doesn't relate to your coursework. So I did my research in terms of finding out what type, like when you go onto their website, their career site, they actually do explain it a little bit further as to what each position entails. And also the job title itself is pretty explanatory. So yeah, that's how I sort of broke down everything.
Great, thank you. And that's a good reminder about international students going for an internship and making sure that there is a dotted line to the program or to the curriculum that you're studying and how that augments it. Perfect. Another question I have for you is, so I know, and you may not know the answer to this or have an experience with it, but I know Esri has internships and they have assistantships. And assistantships are more like helping out at different events and like the summer conference and the Fed GIS. Do you have any experience with that or know anyone that does that you could share?
In terms of the assistantships, I don't really have experience with that. But I do know that actually revolves a lot around the user conference that Esri directs during the summer. So that's going to be revolving around that a lot. And yeah, and I know a couple of Redlands students actually from undergrad took part in that last summer. So yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maybe I have a question if I proceed. Yeah. Part of your interview, like, or from the experience of some of your classmates or those in your batch, was it in person or online? That's the first question. And then secondly, when the interview happens, do you have any kind of manipulation if you are talking about GIS, maybe engineering and so forth? Maybe are they going to ask you like the commands, how to use the maybe ArcGIS online, or are you going to practice something, or it's just about questions?
So in terms of, just so I clarify the question a little bit, you mean the interview, right? Is it online or in person? Yeah, so the interviews are going to be fully remote. It's going to be online. What will happen is once you do apply for the position, you apply through Ripple Match, and Ripple Match actually sends you a notification letting you know if the recruiters are currently looking at your application or not. So you can sort of track it that way. And once Esri reaches out to you, it'll be most likely, like I said, it'll be your hiring manager, and they'll send you a link. They'll ask you for compatible dates and they'll send you a link. They're very flexible with their schedule. So if you can't make a certain date, be honest with them and let them know. So the interview process is purely remote. In terms of manipulating the interview, I would say, like I said, just know your technical knowledge, because I'm not really sure how the interviews for the engineering programs and the software engineers go. But as far as I know from my colleagues, what they said was they asked a lot of technical questions during the interview, as well as just questions surrounding their soft skills. So making sure you're polished right then and there. I don't think they'll ask you to run any codes or anything like that during the interview, because it's only a 30-minute interview and it's for an internship program. So they will try to see if you have some knowledge and if what you've said on your resume reflects your answers during the interview. But I don't think they'll actually have you code or anything like that during the interview.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Himanshi, is there an apply by date that we suggest?
Yes, actually. So the highly suggested date for you to apply for the Esri internships is the 15th of October. So clock's ticking. What we do recommend is that you get your resume sorted out. And if you need any help, please drop into our office here at the library room 116, first floor. We have drop-in hours 1 to 4 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or you can make appointments with us by going to the ocpdredlands.edu website. So please utilize us and let's get your internships going.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And just to
Oh, and
clarify,
also,
Oh.
one second, sorry, Luke. Also, if anyone wants to add me, connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you want to talk a little bit more personally about my process, and if there's any way else that I can help you, feel free to message me. More than happy to share anything else that I can share you with, or even share the profiles of the recruiting team that I actually reached out to. Would be more than happy to do that. So yeah, just feel free to connect with me right there.
thanks.
Well, do you have a question about the timing? So once you were hired, it's a summer internship, correct?
Yes, it's 12
So-
weeks.
Okay, so do you have some general time frame? Did you start in June or May?
So for Esri, they do several cohorts during the summer. I think the earliest they start is May, and then the last cohort joined us sometime in end of June or beginning of July, and it went like the 12-week start for them from that day onwards. But they'll be pretty flexible with that. Obviously, you have to start with a certain cohort, but they'll give you the options. They'll ask you when can you join. And it will also be with preference to the team that you work with, because sometimes directors have deadlines on projects that they want you to work on. So they'll be like, oh, you need to join the internship during this time span.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maybe one last question.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you receive like a reply from Esri, I think there's one person directly from Esri writing to you. Is it the person who's supposed to be your recruiting coordinator we're talking about?
So if you, what do you mean when you, is it like for the interview callback?
Yeah, like because I received a message back from Esri, like in due time, they are going to let me know for like yeah, for I think the interview that during the October period that they are going to come back to me for an interview. Yeah, so I wanted to identify, because I applied for many, and for some I wasn't accepted, and for two of them I was accepted. So like you were talking about the coordinator, I would like to know if that's the person indeed, because those are two different persons that sent me the messages. So
All right. First of all, congrats. That's amazing news.
thank you.
And second of all, so for me too, when they reached out, like now that I recall it, that was the exact same way. First of all, the recruiting team reaches out to you, like the student coordinators. So what I did was I actually searched up their name on LinkedIn, because that itself shows if they're part of the student teams or if they are part of the actual team that you're working for. But for the interviews, like what you said is right. They reach out to you sometime in October. I think starting the second week of October is when they start reaching out for interviews, because I had mine sometime in November, my interview. So when you get that email will directly be through your hiring manager, and it'll say that on the the email itself.
I did not understand well.
Oh, so
Can you
okay.
repeat
So the
yourself?
email that you currently got, that is probably through the student coordinating teams at Esri.
Okay.
So you can actually confirm it. Just type their name on LinkedIn and confirm it.
Okay.
But once they start sending out interview emails, that's a separate email that you'll get sometime mid-October.
Okay.
That email that you get mid-October, that's going to be the email from your director that you'll be working under, or like one of the team members.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Just a quick clarification, Himanshi had shared that the October 15th was kind of our recommended due date, but please know that the internship due dates range from the 1st of November to the end of December. It just depends on the internship. We suggest that date just because applications are often reviewed first. Obviously, we have folks that are getting invites for interviews already, so they're moving. So that's why we suggest a quicker turnaround, even though the deadline for those particular internships may not be until a little bit later. Do we have any last questions about Esri internships or resumes? We'd be happy to answer those for you.
If I want to stop by the Esri table tomorrow, should I bring my resume printed or how should I approach their table?
Yeah, I think that'd be a great idea as long as it's ready. Maybe we've reviewed it, DJ. I would say yes. Yeah, bring your resume, print it, take it to them, and then let them know also if you plan on applying to an internship or if you have already. I think that'd be a good strategy.
Yeah. So Himanshi, what was the overall experience like? What was the culture there? How did you like it? I mean, was it, can you share that with us a little bit?
Yeah, so I actually really liked it because like I said, there are different cohorts that you join with, and you're going to be the closest to the cohort that you are a part of. But Esri does such a good job at making their interns feel welcome. They put on events Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Fridays, it's called Fun Friday. You do activities with your cohort members. And it's just so the company culture, you really do feel included. And you know how like there's like a stigma almost that interns like, oh, you're this dumb intern. That does not exist at Esri. Like even your employers, they make sure to let you know you're a part of the team. It's not like, oh, you're an intern, so you have to do like the slack that we don't want to do. It's not going to be like that. You'll have your designated projects that you'll work on, and they'll make sure that you are credited for it. So I genuinely liked it, and I actually met a lot of people in different departments that I'm currently in connection with, because once I graduate, I want to make sure I have my foot in the door as well. So your hiring managers will actually do a good job at introducing you to different departments, as well as your student coordinators at Esri. Because the one thing that they'll ask you is, do you hope to return back to Esri? That will be something that they'll ask you during the 2 surveys that you submit during your internship. And once you do say yes, they'll actually keep a record of the projects that you worked on. So when you do apply for full-time jobs, they already have a track record of your legacy at Esri. So
That's good. And kind of expanding on that. So the projects, do you work on like one or a couple big projects throughout that 12 weeks? And then at the end, you have something really great to show for it. And when you have something to show for it, do you have access to that, or is that like proprietary to Esri? Because it's one thing just to list it on in your resume, but it's another thing to really show it.
So yes, so speaking from my experience, I worked on 3 big projects. Since I was a part of the global marketing team, I worked with our 86 distributors in launching this marketing guide playbook, as well as this market capabilities assessment that we launched. So those 2, after my projects were concluded, I actually had this presentation in front of the CMO of Esri. And I presented my work, and I got to speak to her, get feedback from her. So the meetings and everything was recorded. I know the meeting, you can actually save it. You'll get a copy of your work. They'll make sure to send it to you, but make sure you speak to your directors first, because it can be sensitive information depending on what type of work you do. So you can have it on your back pocket, but make sure before you share it with people, it's clarified.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So our next steps are to get this uploaded to YouTube. We'll get it out so other folks can see this wonderful information that has been shared today. And then our goal also is to hopefully do a quick turnaround for a a blog post as well. So we're excited for the next things to come with this event. We're very excited to have it. Kristen, thank you for approaching us about it. This has been great.
Yeah, this is wonderful. Thank you both. Really appreciate your insight, and I know it's not only going to help these students, but others too. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.